In 1987, Verrill and her husband Roger decided that they would move to New Mexico. I think Verrill thought that there was more opportunity in New Mexico for her art, and Roger actually was a retired airline pilot, and because she'd become so famous, when he retired, he became her manager. And so they moved to New Mexico in 1987, moved here from Colorado, and they found this wonderful piece of property here and fell in love with it, and this was in 1987. And in 1988, they found a remarkable architect, another woman, but she's not one of the three. Her name was Sharon Woods, and she designed this house for Roger and Verrill. And it took 4 years for them to build this house. And there's a tile here by the fireplace, and it says the date, 1988 to 1994. This house was built with love by Roger and Verrill. And during that time, Verrill became increasingly aware and very proud of her heritage and her background. And it turns out that Verrill, besides being such an incredible artist, she knew that she was related to the Charles Goodnight family. Her name's Verrill Goodnight, and she knew she was related to the Charles Goodnight family from the Texas Panhandle. Now, Charles Goodnight is a very, very famous character. He was called the father of the Texas Panhandle, and he was the first ranch owner in the Texas Panhandle. He was quite a character. He was a big cattle rancher, and he was married to a remarkable woman, the second woman I'm going to tell you about. Her name was Molly, actually Mary Ann Goodnight, but he called her Molly. Molly is this amazing little woman. Charles brought her to the ranch when they got married in the Texas Panhandle in the late 1800s. It was completely derelict. This poor little Molly, who had been a school teacher, arrived to this desolate place. She didn't see a soul for 6 months at a time. What she did instead, she did take care of the cowboy ranch hands, and she would feed them and she would fix their clothes. And then the more she lived there, the more she got to love the land that she was around. And one day, Charles Goodnight was out going over his ranch, and he came across a herd of wild buffalo. This is in the late 1800s. And he came home and he told Molly all about these buffalo. And they had heard about the slaughter of all these buffalo in the late 1870s. And Verrill said to Charles one day, "Charles, why don't you bring a few of the little baby buffalo in here that have been orphaned by their mothers, and I'll bottle feed them and bring them up." He wasn't sure if this was a good idea, but she finally persuaded him. So anyway, he relented, and he brought home 6 little buffalo for Molly to take care of. And she bottle fed, and these buffalo, after several years, from 6 became 250. And it was actually from Charles Goodnight's ranch that he then became extremely interested in the buffalo and the way they were being slaughtered, that he decided to offer Yellowstone National Park 4 of his breeding buffalo bulls. And it is Charles Goodnight's 4 buffalo that went to Yellowstone that became part of the founding herd of Yellowstone's buffalo.